Before we dive into this wild ride, tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing just how far these plain tales of chaos and karma can travel. Now, let me take you right back to the beginning. The exact moment the piece in my row, 30,000 feet up, just shattered. The cabin was humming. Quiet, civilized, the kind of hush you only get in first class when everyone's pretending not to listen. And then, this woman, tall, sharp jaw, blonde hair pulled back so tight it could have kept a tent up in a hurricane, blocked my view. She was all power red. Red suit, red lipstick, red-hot attitude. And she wasn't just looking for a seat. She was looking for a fight. "That's my seat," she declared, every syllable meant to sting. Finger pointed right at my chest. I stayed put, not flinching, sinking deeper into that beautiful leather seat I'd lucked into thanks to a last-minute upgrade. Honestly, the first win I'd had in weeks. I was 38, fresh off a month of back-to-back meetings, living out of a suitcase, and in no mood for drama. So I just looked up, calm as can be, and told her, "Unless your name's on my boarding pass, I don't think it is." And you could hear this little ripple of laughter from the rows behind, people perking up like they'd just switched on a new episode of their favorite reality show. She wasn't used to being challenged. You could tell. She pressed closer, strong perfume turning the air into something you could almost chew. "Move your things," she hissed, and man, you could feel the anger in her voice, like she thought volume could bend reality. "Call whoever you want." I shrugged, not moving an inch. "It's my seat." That's when she got louder. "Don't test me. I'm friends with the crew. You'll regret this." Now, the businessman next to me in a crisp navy suit looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I caught his eye, gave him a small shake of my head. "No need for backup, buddy." But she wasn't after backup. She was after blood. The thing is, she'd already been a problem before she even hit my row, complaining about the temperature. Her carry-on, the greeting at the door, like she was auditioning for most annoying passenger of the year. When she landed in front of me, she was primed for a scene, and boy, she delivered. "This man is in my seat. 2A, I booked it." Her voice carried like an air raid siren. Two flight attendants materialized out of nowhere. One older, steady, practiced at handling difficult customers. The other young and visibly nervous. "Ma'am, may I see your boarding pass?" the senior attendant asked, voice neutral. The woman, who I'd later learn was called Ella, whipped out her pass like she was slapping down a trump card. The attendant barely blinked. "You're assigned 7C, she said, clear as day. That silence, wow. The guy 2 rows back let out a snort, and someone whispered, "Not even first class." "But Ella?" She doubled down. "That's wrong. I upgraded. He probably snuck up here." She refused to budge, hands on hips, voice rising until everyone in first class had their phones tilted our way, some pretending not to record, but absolutely recording. I stayed calm. "Sit where you paid for," I said quietly, not looking to escalate. That only made her madder. "Get the captain, or the gate agent. This man shouldn't be on this flight." The tension in the air was thick enough to spread on toast. The younger attendant looked ready to cry. The older one stayed professional, but her jaw was tight. Then the captain showed up, slicing through the standoff with all the authority of someone who's broken up 100 of these before breakfast. "What's going on here?" he asked, deep, no-nonsense voice. Ella's whole demeanor shifted, fake smile snapping on. "Captain, thank God. This man is in my seat, 2A. I booked it. He checked our boarding passes. No drama, no hurry." "Sir, you're in the correct seat," he said, handing mine back. He turned to Ella. "Your pass says 7C. That's when she started scrambling. "No, I upgraded. I paid for first class." "Move him." The captain's face didn't change. "That's not how this works," he replied, steady as a rock. "Your boarding pass tells us where you're supposed to sit." The passengers behind me were openly chuckling now. Someone whispered, "Show's almost over." But Ella wasn't backing down. She leaned in, tried to get the captain on her side. "Just put him in coach, give him a voucher." Problem solved. He wasn't having it. "The problem will be solved when you sit in the seat assigned to you." Her face turned almost purple. "You don't know who I am. This is discrimination. I'll sue." The captain didn't flinch, but his voice sharpened. "Gate agent," he called, as if he'd just announced a verdict. The whispers grew into a hum as the gate agent walked down the aisle. Clipboard in hand, every eye in the cabin glued to her. "Ma'am, may I see your boarding pass?" Ella shoved it at her, trying for composure. "Please get this man out of my seat." The agent was unbothered, checked her manifest, and then, in front of the entire plane, said, "Your assigned seat is 7C, ma'am. Not 2A." You could feel the room shift, relief, amusement, even a little pity, but mostly just satisfaction. Ella fumbled for her phone, insisting she had proof, but she scrolled and nothing. Just more silence. "If you have proof, you can show me," the agent offered, voice pure steel. Ella's hand shook. I don't have to prove anything. You're all wrong." The gate agent's tone hardened. "Without proof, this conversation is over. You will need to sit in seat 7C. If you refuse, we'll have to remove you from the flight." Now the whole cabin was watching, some filming openly, the businessman beside me trying not to laugh. Ella spun around, trying to stare everyone down. "Stop filming me. This is harassment." But her outrage only made more people hit record. The captain stepped forward, voice final. "Ma'am, you've disrupted the boarding process long enough. Gather your belongings. You are leaving this aircraft." And that's when it happened, the walk of shame. Ella, red-faced and furious, grabbed her bag, stumbled as she yanked it from the overhead, and stomped down the aisle flanked by the captain and the gate agent. People whispered, some clapped quietly, one guy just muttered, "Finally." She turned halfway down, spat over her shoulder. "This isn't over." But nobody cared. The door closed behind her, and it was like a collective exhale swept through the plane. The older attendant came over, apologized for the trouble, but I just shook my head. "You handled it better than I would have," the businessman said, grinning. Even the captain cracked a smile as he passed by, muttering, "Don't worry, that seat's yours. She'll be flying coach, if at all." The whole cabin relaxed, people replaying videos, swapping looks, the story already spreading like wildfire. The businessman toasted me with his plastic cup. "To patience," he said, and I couldn't help but smile. "And to karma." The plane pushed back, lights dimming, everyone finally settling in for the flight they'd paid for. But the story? That story was just taking off. Some flights are remembered for where they take you. This one will be remembered for a woman in red, for an ego that couldn't fit in coach, and for a whole plane of strangers united by one outrageous performance. As the engines roared and we finally lifted off, I had one thought left. Wonder how viral this'll go by the time we land. So, what do you think? Was the crew right, or did anyone go too far? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to share your own wild travel story. Because out here, karma always finds its seat. You ever notice how a whole plane can breathe again after a storm like that blows through? That's what happened the second those wheels left the ground. There was this strange, weightless relief, like we'd all been holding our collective breath for too long and suddenly remembered how to let it go. A couple rows behind me, a woman giggled, almost whispering, "Well, I didn't see that coming." Someone else murmured, "Bet she's already lighting up the airline's customer service hotline." And I just sat there, finally stretching out in my seat, trying to melt into the cushions. I looked out the window, city lights blinking below, just barely visible through the cloud cover. You'd think the adrenaline would have worn off by now. But my heart was still drumming a little too loud, and my mind kept replaying every single second of what had just happened. It's funny how, when you're living it, you just react, calm, steady. No fireworks. But after, the what-ifs and almost start creeping in. What if she'd been a little more clever? What if the captain had caved? But the truth is, her own stubbornness took her down. You know what I mean? The businessman beside me, Mark, I'd finally learned his name, broke my train of thought. He leaned over, one eyebrow raised, a smirk tugging at his mouth. "Think she'll write a novel about this?" I couldn't help it. I laughed, finally letting go. "If she does, I hope I'm the villain. I think I'd make a good one." Mark shook his head, still grinning. "Nah, you're too calm for that. She needed someone to blame, but you never even got rattled." That's what drove her nuts. For a while, the cabin just kind of buzzed quietly, flight attendants back in their groove. Drink carts rattling, someone tapping away on a laptop, a couple across the aisle already halfway through a rom-com. but the energy wasn't quite the same. Every once in a while, I'd catch someone glancing my way, like they wanted to come over, say something, but weren't sure if I wanted to keep reliving it. Then, about half an hour in, just as I'm starting to nod off, there's this tap on my shoulder. I turn, and there's a woman, a passenger from the row behind, early 50s maybe, with a kind face and a voice like someone who's used to calming down kids. "Hey, just wanted to say you handled that beautifully. Most people would have blown up or gotten kicked off themselves. You did the right thing." Her words took me by surprise, but it meant more than I expected. "Thanks," I said, trying not to sound too awkward. Didn't feel brave at the time. Just didn't want to let her walk all over me. She smiled, squeezed my arm, and went back to her seat. That little gesture stuck with me more than all the smirks and whispers. Sometimes, it's the quiet support that hits hardest, right? But hey, this flight wasn't done handing out surprises. About 40 minutes from landing, the captain came on the intercom. His voice, smooth as bourbon, totally unbothered by the circus earlier, announced some turbulence up ahead. "Seatbelts, folks. Nothing we can't handle. Just a little bump on our way down." Almost on cue, the plane jolted, that weird roller coaster dip in your stomach reminding everyone who's really in control up here. Now, I'm not a nervous flyer, but I glanced over at Mark. He was cool as a cucumber, already tightening his seatbelt, unfazed. Across the aisle, the couple gripped hands. That woman from earlier caught my eye and gave a little reassuring nod. It was the kind of moment where all that drama faded, replaced by a shared focus. "Just get us on the ground safe, please and thank you." For the rest of the descent, the plane bucked and rattled, and I couldn't help but notice the difference in the cabin energy now. Everyone united not by spectacle, but by the simple hope for a smooth landing. And, wouldn't you know it, as we finally touched down, wheels bumping the runway, engines howling, a spontaneous round of applause broke out. You could feel the laughter and tension blending, people cheering not just for the landing, but maybe for surviving a little social turbulence, too. Mark turned to me, deadpan. "Think she'd have applauded if she were still here?" I shook my head, grinning. She'd be live-streaming her complaints from baggage claim. As we waited for the doors to open, the businessman from across the aisle, the one who'd whispered commentary during the showdown, caught my eye. "You know," he said, "I've flown 100 times and never seen anything quite like that. I'll be telling that story for years." I just nodded, realizing that's exactly how legends and urban myths get started. A few people who were there, 1,000 who wish they had been. Stepping off the plane, back in the crowded, anonymous sprawl of the airport, the whole thing already felt surreal, like a fever dream, or a scene out of a movie where you're not sure if you were the main character or just an extra with a front row seat. But as I walked toward baggage claim, phone buzzing with texts from friends. "How's the trip? Anything crazy?" I had to laugh. Should I tell them? Would they believe it? Maybe. Maybe not. But one thing I know, on a flight where everything went wrong for one person, it kind of went right for the rest of us. A rare little flash of karma, played out at 30,000 feet, with a captive audience and a crew that held the line. That's travel for you, sometimes. The best stories don't start until you're already in the air. So what about you? Ever had a travel day flip on its head? Drop your story below. Let's see whose karma boomerang flew farther. And hey, don't forget to hit like, share your favorite wild travel moment, and tell me where you're watching from. The sky's got room for every kind of story, and I can't wait to hear yours. Yeah, that happened. And it could happen again. Maybe to you, maybe to the person next to you. That's the thing about flying. You never know who you'll be sitting beside, or who might just try to take your seat.